Hello and welcome once again to one of your favorite podcasts. I know you probably have 10, 15 of them, maybe 20, I don't know. But you know what? Thank you so much because I know this is in that group. So thank you so much. Welcome to Sit and Relax. Let's talk. This is yours truly, Mark Rivera. Just wanting to tell you, thank you for tuning in and listening to all this good content that we have over here. Well, today we have a special guest, as always, bringing people on here to talk about and share their experiences and let others hear their life and hear parts of where their thought processes and everything is just amazing to be able to be part of this. So today we have a special guest. It is, you may know or not know this person. You may have sit next to them once or twice, or you're going to say, hey, I know who that is. Of course, we got Brett Smerber. Brett, thank you so much. I appreciate. Thank you for your presence here.
Hey,
Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the time.
Oh, definitely. No, it's amazing. And listen, we've been talking a little bit, trying to get this set up, date and time and everything that's going on. But thank you so much that we've been able to make some time here to make this happen. And well, let's get started.
Yeah, let's do it.
For sure,
Excited.
Brett. So what was it kind of that, brought you into this? Oh, before we start, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you again, Mark, for having me. My name is Brett Smerber, and I'm 27 years old, and I am currently a graduate student at California Baptist University in their Master's of Science Counseling Psychology program. As are you, and everybody who's been on this podcast, I think so far, is part of our cohort who have come on and graciously shared their experiences, like you said. Yeah, so I guess a little bit about me and my background. I'm an Army veteran, and I was a 37 Fox in the U.S. Army. And for layman terms, that's just the designation of, what the job title is.
Yeah.
My actual job title was psychological operations specialist. And yeah, before that, I was in school, and I actually graduated high school at 16, turning 17. And
So
then
you're really smart, aren't you? I knew you were smart, but now you're telling me that I'm finding that out. That means you're really smart.
I don't know about that. But yeah, no, I went to my first year of university at 17, and that was at University of Washington in Seattle. And while I was there, I was trying to do a bunch of different stuff. I was trying to get an ROTC scholarship. I was trying to, go there for pre-med and stuff like that. And I had always really wanted to be a surgeon. I knew that, I wanted to be in a helping profession, or I wanted to be in a serving profession. And that drive kind of came just since I was young. I just had kind of this really inherent and profound feeling from a young child of, wanting to serve and wanting to serve systems and purposes bigger than myself.
Yeah. It was just in you the whole time, right? It was just something inside of you.
Yeah, it's one of my earliest memories that I remember like thinking about and like having like, like thoughts and like reflecting on it and feelings for. So yeah, that was definitely where that stemmed from. So yeah, the stuff at UW didn't work out, and so I came back and I kind of worked for a year, and I was really struggling, and I enlisted in the US Army, and then I was gone in the Army for a couple years, and I got injured, so I got out. And then after that, I was like, well, what now? Like, I basically have to just start over in my schooling. And
Yeah.
so that's what I did. I went to a local community college for 2.5, 3 years. And then after that, well, actually, let me back up. So I was at this community college, and I was still pre-med. So I was still a bio major / like pre-med, still trying to like become a doctor, basically become a surgeon. And kind of had a crisis of self and a crisis of faith, and just was having a really, really, really tough time, struggling a lot with my mental health. And there was life factors going on and stuff, but I kind of came to the realization, that like maybe I wasn't cut out for medicine, and I wasn't cut out for biology. I was struggling super hard. I had to take like chemistry like 2 times over because
Oh,
I kept failing, and then, it was just a big struggle for me.
that's
So
rough.
yeah, and I had a professor who was a bio professor and who kind of came to me and was like, "Hey, listen, like I know you like medicine, and I know that you really care about like helping others and you want to heal others, and that's really admirable." And she was like, "Have you ever considered like becoming a therapist?" And
Hmm, interesting.
I was like, kind of, like not really. And it was funny too because like in high school and stuff, I was very much into the quote unquote hard sciences.
Uh-huh.
So I was all about like the
What does
anatomy
that
and
mean?
what
What is the hard sciences? Like, what does that
yeah,
mean?
so this is kind of an antiquated term. We don't really use this anymore, but when people say hard sciences, they typically refer to, chemistry, biology, anatomy, very, very empirical, right? And as some people may or may not know, psychology in its inception was not considered empirical. It was
Mhm.
considered a soft science, meaning it wasn't really taken seriously. It wasn't really considered um, a real science. So I kind of had that mindset as
Mhm.
a naive, teenager of like, oh, this is bunk, like,
Yeah.
psychology isn't anything. And then once I kind of went through this kind of spiritual crisis and kind of this crisis of self,
Mhm.
and this professor suggested it, and I started thinking more, and I was like, like actually maybe this is a good avenue. I felt a long time, it felt like it was a door was closing on me and that I was just like a failure and like I couldn't, I wasn't going to be successful in these
Mhm.
things. And it got to the point where I just was like, I need to at least try, like I need to at least see,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so yeah, I changed my major, like less than a year left of community college, and then I transferred from my community college to University of California, Riverside, and that was in 2019, beginning of 2019. So I finished up my last year and a half there through the pandemic, did all that. It was all online, which sucked, but
Mhm.
it was all right.
Oh
Um,
man, those online classes were amazing, weren't
oh yeah, yeah. And
they?
it's funny too. I tell people, especially after now being in my second year of grad school, genuinely, I feel that, undergrad is a lot tougher on students, and they're really not prepared unless they take the right kinds of courses either in high school or, if they have the opportunity to go to a community college. I really, really, really advise people to do that. And I was the first one back in the
Yeah.
day as a high schooler to tell you, no, community college sucks. Like you need to go to university right out of high school, blah, blah, blah. And I ate my own words, So
They know.
yeah, but it
Uh,
was good. It was a learning experience for sure.
yeah.
So yeah, I did that. And yeah, and then was finishing up. I graduated with my bachelor's of science in psychology from UCR in
Hmm.
2021. And while I was there, I did narrative research. So I was working in a psychology lab that
Man,
focused on researching people's personal narratives and how that relates to how their personality forms.
that is so fascinating. You've been like all over the place. Oh my God, that's awesome.
Well, I feel like if I don't stay busy, I go a little crazy. So I gotta
Okay.
stay busy, gotta stay.
Okay.
So yeah, so then kind of hit another little bit of a rough patch after that, where all of the grad programs I had applied to were either extremely impacted, meaning they had way too many students that they were trying to take in um, for those cohorts,
Hmm.
and the campuses or the universities that I did get accepted to and did get like interview offers from, I was oftentimes the only bachelor's candidate, like I was the only interviewee who had a bachelor's, whereas everybody else already had masters.
Mm.
So I was kind of looking around and was like, okay, so it seems like most folks who come into these like bigger PhD and bigger like PsyD programs already have experience. They've already been working as therapists. They already are in master's programs, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of shifted my focus a little bit from research and a research PhD to the clinical side of things. And
Hmm.
that wasn't as much of a hard shift coming from like bio to psych was, because
Yeah.
um, that had a lot more to do with like, I think how I was identifying at the time and how I had always kind of seen myself in like my career and things like that.
Hmm.
And so this shift going from the research side to the clinical side was not as difficult. Now, if someone wants to go from clinical to research, that might be a little bit more
Yeah.
difficult if you don't
Yeah.
have the experience in undergrad.
Yeah.
So for anybody who's an undergrad out there, if you're especially in psychology in undergrad, do your best to get into some kind of lab, get into some kind of research lab that you can be an RA in, a research assistant in as an undergrad. Because for one, it looks really good on a resume. And for two, it provides you with really, really, really invaluable experience if you do want to do research in the future. And I think it's good to have it, starting in undergrad, and then you can move into your graduate schooling.
Yeah.
So
It sounds like
yeah,
some really good advice. That sounds like some really good advice because those are like little small things, right? Little key things that, it's not really like put
it's
out
not
there
talked
much.
about.
It's not talked about, but those are those little details, those little things that'll help you kind of like on your next move. Because like for yourself, making that transition, you said going from collecting data and doing all that, right? And then to transitioning into it was easy for you because you understood the all the technical part, all that other like
Right.
the analysis, all that stuff, and then just transitioning that and applying it to like understanding what this counseling thing really is about, what this counseling psychology, what is that about? Okay, so I can see that it goes kind of like hand in hand in that direction, but not the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely go both ways. I've heard and talked to people who, started out in research and then they ended up doing a clinical degree. Um, and I think it's important to distinguish too, like these terms that we're using as well, because people may not know. So when people refer to like clinical psychology or clinical anything, typically it's in the context of you're being seen by some form of doctor. You're being seen by someone who has a doctoral degree of some sort. So whether that's a medical degree, and they're a physical doctor, or if they're a PhD in psychology or a PhD or a PsyD, which is a doctorate of psychology in clinical psych, they're really the folks who are going to be giving assessments. Those are the folks who get to charge the big bucks for sessions.
200 minimum per session,
Yeah,
right?
200, yeah, 200 minimum. I know people would charge more than that. So
Oh God.
yeah, if it depends on what you can afford, and I guess the area that you're practicing in for sure. But and then whereas like counseling psychology, which we are both in a counseling psychology program, a master's degree program. And I think the distinction there that people need to know is that counseling is kind of the entrance into clinical. It's very, very, very difficult, I think, for a lot of people to just come from a general, BS in psychology and go straight into like a PsyD or a clinical PhD program. Obviously, your master's is going to be rolled into that, so you're doing almost twice the amount of work, right? But I do think that's a lot more to bite off. Whereas I think if people kind of break it up and they go to like a master's program that is just a terminal master's, and they do that for a bit and they get into the workforce and they see what it's like actually working in the field, then you can really make, I think, a much more informed decision on if you want to pursue a doctoral degree. Because I can't tell you how many people I've seen and talked to who, spent 8+ years
Yeah.
like in school, no breaks, went right for a PhD, and now they're not as fulfilled as maybe they could have been if they had done something else. And it's like you spend all that time and all that money getting a doctoral degree that now you don't even really want. So
yeah, it seems like you kind of like skip a lot of like the essential parts of like what develops you and what like opens your mind and your heart to like your passion for that of like that point, right?
Absolutely. And I really encourage people, this is kind of why gap years are meant to exist between, typically either you can do one between a bachelor's and a master's, or most of the time they happen between a master's and a doctoral degree. But I definitely recommend people, take those chances, like get outside of your comfort zone, go have varied life experiences. We live in Southern California, so that's great for a lot of reasons, but it's also not great because you don't get like a full cultural experience that maybe you could get, elsewhere in other parts of the world, or even other parts of the country. So definitely recommend that for sure. But but yeah, and then so
So you're doing, sorry, but you're doing both, and that's awesome. So you're doing right now a dual program, right? You're doing LPCC and you're doing forensic, right?
right.
So
So
what is
Cal,
that? Talk to us more about that. Like, why are you doing both of those?
yeah, definitely. So first of all, Cal Baptist is unique in this regard that
Hmm.
they do offer what's called concentrations.
Hmm.
Um, so it's kind of like, I guess it would be kind of like taking a minor, like as a graduate student, except
Hmm.
it's not a minor, like
Let
you're
a
not
minor,
getting a
yeah,
degree in it, right? You're
yeah.
getting a certification and you just take these classes to provide the extra training. So um, baseline, as you know, CBU's counseling psychology program is a master's of science in counseling psychology. And then once you get licensed at that master's level, you would be licensed as a marriage and family therapist. That's baseline, everybody. So
Hmm.
even people who are on the 2-year track, right? It only takes them 2 years to get their degree. They're still going to come out hopefully licensed at the
Yeah,
end and be a marriage and family therapist.
yeah.
Um, Now, individuals who do these concentrations, the first one that you mentioned is the LPCC, which is a licensed professional clinical counselor. And this actually goes by different names in different states, but essentially what it is you're an occupational counselor.
Hmm.
So this extra training, this concentration that CBU allows you to take, um, allows you to take a separate exam, a
Yeah,
licensing exam, and get licensed as an LPCC in addition to your MFT license.
yeah.
Um, and
And I,
essentially what this does is it just kind of widens the scope, I think, a little bit. It
yeah.
allows you to work with people who are more struggling like with their careers or trying to find out like
Hmm.
what they want to do in life. We really need folks who do this, especially with working with incarcerated populations, because
Yes.
this is really what they need as far as they need someone to kind of give them
Direction.
yeah, some
Yeah.
direction, some
Yeah.
structure as far as, this is kind of what I'm interested in. This is maybe what I want to do. How do I get there?
Yeah.
Um, and so it kind of helps kind of broaden the scope a little bit of the populations I can work with and then kind of
Yes.
practice that I can perform
And
for
it
them.
does, because like for myself, I'm doing both the MFT and the LPC. So I
Mhm.
already took my career counseling class, and that class
Yeah.
was amazing. It
It
just
was super
opens.
fun, right?
Yes, it
It was
was just
great.
like,
I love that class.
right. It was amazing to understand and to see kind of like at first glance it looks just simple, like, okay, well, you go to somebody and you just give them like a test, right? You give them the test. I forgot the name of the test, but you just give them, I don't
There's
know,
a
you,
few.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a few, but you give them the test and then they answer the question, what do you like to do, like what are your favorite hobbies, what do you think?
Mhm.
And then like it's calculated in a form like, okay, well, it seems like these are like the best jobs for you,
Right.
like to do
Mhm.
this and do that.
Right.
And yeah, like it's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward. It's not always, because yeah,
Mhm.
it recommended me some jobs that yeah, it didn't match with like who I was. But overall, like I think it's a great method and something to help those who are just like completely lost.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think the most basic resource for that, if someone wanted to, if they're interested in career counseling or if they themselves, are struggling with figuring out what they want to do as a career, um, you guys need to look for a book called Please Understand Me Too.
Mm.
And it's the numeral two, not like TOO, it's the actual numeral. And it's by a Dr. David Kiersey. Um, and he is a psychologist, and he designed this test that you were actually talking about, which is it initially started with the Kiersey temperament sorter.
Uh-huh.
So this is predicated on the idea that if you can get into a job or into a career that matches your temperament, so not just your personality, but your actual
Yeah.
temperament, right?
Uh-huh.
Those are different.
Yeah.
Um, people will find that they have much more job satisfaction and they also have more job longevity. So a lot of times, professional career counselors will see folks who maybe have done a job for 20, 30 years and they're burnt out and they hate it and they hate their life and they're
Yeah.
struggling, and the beauty of being a career counselor is that if their presenting complaint in therapy is primarily related to their career or to their career choices,
Mhm.
as an LPCC, we can do that. Whereas
Mhm.
if they were seeing someone who was solely in MFT and didn't have that LPCC licensure,
Yeah.
and if this was their like chief complaint, like this is the reason they're presenting to therapy, it may be out of their scope of practice or out of their scope of competence to really work with
Mhm.
this individual. So that's what's nice, is that it allows us a little bit more scope to kind of address these issues. And I think,
Yeah.
um, people need to know that there's support out there for you if you're struggling in terms of your career, and, you don't really know like where you belong or where you want to fit or what you want to do.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that's the LPCC. And
Yeah.
then the second concentration that CBU offers, Cal Baptist offers, is the forensic psych concentration.
I've
Uh,
always been interested in it. I know about it, not very detailed, but I know about it. Very interesting. The little bit that I know is very interesting. So thank you so much for sharing about this, because it's good. Let
yeah.
us know, what is this forensic all about?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I tell people like, hey, if you like true crime and if you like serial killers and if you find them interesting, maybe you should look into being a forensic psychologist. So, CBU does actually have a terminal master's program in forensic psychology. So it's a little bit of a separate field from clinical or counseling psychology, in that forensic psychologists work with individuals who are either incarcerated or at our risk of being incarcerated due to crime. And they are really there to help assess and help work with these individuals to keep them from incarceration. Or if they are incarcerated, figure out, what is really the driving force that is keeping them incarcerated.
Um,
So a lot of times, your forensic psych populations are going to work with both juveniles and adults who have had issues with, you know, um, law enforcement and the justice system, um, and they focus a little bit more on that specific pathology. So it's not just for general, complaints, or someone who has anxiety or someone who has depression. You would see, it's a standard MFT
mhm.
therapist for that. But yeah, forensic psych does do a little bit more in terms of the psychopathology, in terms of examining, um,
Wow.
yeah, these individuals who have a bit more severe mental illness or mental disturbances that keep them incarcerated or put them in the way of the justice system. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing, it's a little bit deeper, a little bit darker there. You go into a little bit more of like the what is it that's driving to like to these thoughts, right? What is it that's driving into creating all these things that are like severe, right? Those severe like actions and all those things that you do. Like, where is like your
Mhm.
mind? Like how
Yes.
to I'm seeing it and I'm hearing it, like how to balance and how to navigate through all those things to like figure out like where it's the is that's pretty much what it is then, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I describe like the psyche and mental health of the psyche as like an onion, and it has
Mhm.
layers, right? Like anything else. And you peel back a couple layers and maybe someone's going to therapy for severe depression or, severe anxiety or other issues. If you keep peeling back those layers, you're going to start hitting the more severe
Yeah.
spectrums,
Yeah.
of mental illness. And I do genuinely believe that, people who are in these severe spectrums of mental illness do deserve support and do deserve help, and they do deserve just as much care and compassion as folks who say have less layered problems, let's
Yeah.
say. Um,
Who are more normal?
yeah,
What it
quote
says
unquote
more.
normal. Yeah, yeah. We don't like that term, but yeah, we'll
Yeah.
use it. Yeah.
Who is, but honestly, let me ask you, but who is
Yeah.
it? Who is normal? But I mean,
Who
let's
no
leave that.
no, there is no real normal,
What does normal mean? According to whom? According to whom is normal?
the bigwigs who sit in the chairs who write our manuals
Oh,
and publish the APA guidelines. Yeah,
right, yeah.
no.
And if
But
we go off of that, like for us, like as a society, right? To us, who sets the bar for normal? Unfortunately, sources that we should not always believe in. But that's again, that's
right,
a
right.
whole nother, yeah.
That's a whole
So,
nother that's a whole nother
don't
that's a
want
whole
to peel
nother
that onion.
episode.
Don't want to peel that onion. I don't want to peel that. I don't
We
want to
don't
peel
want to peel
that
that
layer.
layer back right
Yeah.
now. No. Yeah. Yeah, so that's forensic psych. So if someone's really interested in working with those populations of individuals, I highly recommend, looking into forensic psychology. And of course, that kind of is more on your research side. You are expected to be more of a researcher. You do need to know, how to do research. You need to know how to interpret data.
Research,
So
research, research.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
little bit more heady, I think, but if you're definitely an analytical type of person, but you don't want to be a therapist or you don't want to give therapy, I really recommend that um, as well. There are also, there are so many different jobs and careers in psychology just as a whole
Hmm.
that you really got to find your niche. You got to find your niche as far as where you really feel you're serving your purpose best. Um,
Yeah. It's crazy
so
when you say
yeah.
that niche, niche. But when you say that, I'm like, I think it's like two parts, right? I think so far as like my experience and what I hear from others is like one, where do you fit in? Like where do you feel comfortable and where do you like work best at? Kind of like I think those two kind of play a big role in that and like finding your niche, right? What
Yeah.
do you think? What do you think?
Well, absolutely. And I think understanding too that those things aren't mutually, they don't have to be mutually exclusive. Like you could be really comfortable in a job and you could
Uh-huh.
enjoy it even, but maybe you're not applying yourself to the highest possible standard that you could be, striving for.
Hmm.
So I think really finding where those things intersect personally for each person is super important.
Hmm.
Um,
And like that
yeah.
midpoint, right? We're looking at that midpoint.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
where do I stand?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
For
Definitely.
yourself. So like now, kind of like for yourself at this point now, kind of through because my God, it's been a journey. It's amazing, like to be able to like do these interviews and to kind of like hear people's backgrounds and their stories and like it's
Mhm.
amazing,
Yeah.
just to see you take that and like honestly for me, I like look at that and I take all that and see like where you stand now and who you are. Like it all kind of makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just part of like this is what we do, right? I mean, this is what we do naturally. It's part of just
Yeah.
analyzing, look at okay, the trajectory of life and kind of like where you stand now and as a
Mhm.
person, as an individual, as everything. It's amazing because I see why you are such an amazing person today and why you're doing what you're doing today and like your accomplishments and everything that you have. And like it's so awesome. Like I feel like not just myself, but many people in class kind of feed off of you and take some of that, energy that you have. Cause I'm gonna tell you, you have energy. I love it. And
You're
I'm
so
sitting in the
sweet.
back, and I'm like just grabbing some a little bit like give me
We sit on opposite sides of the room, but we feed from each other because I'm in the front, I'm in the very front row, and you're in the very back row. But I can just like feel your enthusiasm through each question. So
some.
it's just a mutual exchange of energy. Yeah, I love it.
It's
I
Peter,
love
that's
it.
awesome.
But yeah, I
So
really oh, go ahead, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go
I
for
was
it.
just gonna say I'd like to talk a little bit about, if it's okay,
Yeah.
kind of just talking in general to students who may be out there who, even are still in their undergrad and stuff, and just kind of the crazy path sometimes that life takes you. And
Hmm.
you I know we had talked about this a little bit before we started, as far as it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of connection, not only amongst students but also amongst professionals once you get out into the field and you're working
Hmm.
on, as a master's level clinician. um, and that's really what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to provide a little bit of a framework for people to
Hmm.
feel connected even in their undergrad, even as psych, undergraduates, and who want to pursue graduate degrees. um, and so I think it's really great, and so I appreciate, again, the opportunity, and I'm stoked that you're doing this. So I think it's really cool. But yeah, I wanted to say a little bit about, um I think people get caught up in going to school, and I think they get caught up just in the idea of like, oh, well, I need to do something that makes a lot of money, or I need to do something that my parents want me to do, or
Hmm.
a real job, quote unquote. Like I have a
Yeah.
lot of friends who, were in the arts, and my girlfriend really wants to study the arts, and she has fear of this stigma that it's not respected, and that it's not lucrative, and
Hmm.
um
It's not really a
it's not
career.
practical.
Yeah.
Right, right. And so I've kind of tried telling her it's something that was imparted to me from other instructors throughout the years, that um first of all, it's okay to fail. Like, it is not the end of the world if you fail a class. It's not the end of the world if you even like flunk out a whole semester, or you have to take a step back from school because of, family or mental health or whatever. You can always start again. You can always pick yourself up and start over. You just have to make the choice that this is what you want to do, and you do want to start over. And it's definitely possible.
Mhm.
So I don't want anyone out there to like be discouraged, like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm in my 7th year of undergrad or whatever. It took me technically 8 full years like to finish an undergrad degree, right? But it's because I started so early and then I did so much stuff in between. Um, and when I had to come back and start over, basically, it was like, what now? And
Yeah.
I just I want people to know that, if you're out there and you have this experience, you are not alone. It is not the end of the world. You can start over. School is not a
It's not
terminal
going nowhere.
process. It's not going anywhere. Yeah, learning should take your whole life. So especially if you're dedicated, and especially if you have a passion for a particular subject or field. So yeah, that would be my big advice to people, is just like, listen, don't give up. Don't think that there isn't a way around. If a door closes, it just means that there's another one opening somewhere else. You just got to find it. Um, so that was a big lesson, I think, for me to learn, especially because I had always prided myself on being like a straight A student and being like
Mhm.
a very serious academic, and knowing that I was good at school and knowing that like I enjoyed school. But yet, when you hit those walls, it just makes you feel like you're not good enough, and it makes you feel
Yeah.
like you're not going to be able to do what you want to do. And it's just not true. It's a very limited perspective, and it's really hard to dig yourself out of that if you don't have
Yeah.
anybody telling you like, listen, it's okay, like you can start over, like you can choose to do something else. So I think that that's one thing that's really important. And then the other thing too, as far as like undergrad, is you know don't assume that you're above it. I think because for a couple years, especially in certain classes, not all, I had this kind of like superiority complex, and I had to
Mhm.
develop humility, and I had to develop, like, I really did have to be humbled by knowing that there were other people who were smarter than me, in those classes, and that
Yeah.
you're not above like the basics of what you're supposed to be learning, even if it's boring, even if you hate the instructor, like even if you just every time you go to this class, you're like, oh, I hate this freaking class. Like, stick through it,
Yeah.
stick with it. Um,
It's to build character.
and don't take it for granted, because it's actually going to come in handy later. Like those things that you learn in your undergrad, and those habits especially that you form excuse me, as a student in undergrad, are so important, because if I hadn't worked my ass off in undergrad, I wouldn't be working my ass off now as a grad
Yeah.
student,
Yeah.
and finding that it's actually easier, in my opinion. Some people probably will have a different opinion, but I found that my undergrad was much more difficult, especially at UCR, in terms of my workload. Like I was
Mhm.
drowning all the time, and I've always been a full-time student, so 4 classes or more at a time. And like, man, I was pulling my hair out. I shaved my head because I
It
was just
was,
like, I can't handle
can't
this.
take this no more. This is too much.
Yeah, it was too much. Yeah. And it was just like, you just
God.
gotta stick with it. Just stick through it. I promise it gets better. And then yeah, now being in grad school, it's like, especially if you're studying something that you really, really enjoy, and that you don't see as a chore to like learn and go to class, like you actually enjoy going to class, you enjoy
You
being on
want to
campus.
learn. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's really where I think you're gonna find a lot of your early formative school experiences are gonna come in handy, because if you can't
Mhm.
develop those skills in the beginning, it's gonna be really, really, really hard to develop them once you're considered, a professional student, and you're expected to perform at a certain level.
Yeah.
Um, so that was a big thing for me that I just wanted to get out, as far as like, don't give up.
Mhm.
There's always a way around, there's always a workaround, like, and just because you may have to take a different path, try not to take shortcuts, because there's really no shortcuts to figuring out your life. Like you really have to go through the experiences, even if they're bad, um, to kind of figure out what you need, and what you need to learn, and what you need to experience.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in the phrase, no mud, no lotus.
Mhm. Okay.
which means, the lotus is like one of the most beautiful and like hardy flowers out there, but it
Where does it come
thrives
from? Right.
in
Right.
really, really gross environments.
Yeah.
It lives in bogs and it lives in swamps, and it grows from the mud and it grows from the thick.
Yeah.
So you really have to understand that when you're going through a hard time, it's to make you stronger. You need to learn some lesson. You need to understand something better about yourself. And it's definitely going to come in handy in the future.
Definitely. And, kind of like before we started this and we were talking about, right, hardships, we were talking about hard times and where it's brought us now up to this point in life, and why we're doing what we're doing, why it is that we're projecting now and trying to do what we do. It's because all these hard times, all these experiences that we've had that we've been able to overcome, obviously, because we're still here. I mean, we're still alive and we're still smiling. We still have most of our teeth, right? Everything's good, right?
I lost some of mine in the army, so I don't know about me, but
right, I got a couple, but we're still here, right? We're still here scarred. We got the scars, we got things to prove, we got all these to show what we've been through, what we've done. But now at this point in life, in the here and now, what we're doing now is now we're not just embracing and taking in now the point of where life is like, here is why you've been through everything that you've been through. It's to put you here in this place right here, right now. Look at the people around you, look at everything around you. Now is your turn. Now is your time. Get to work, and so that's why for me personally, as we're all doing this together, because it's not just me, it's yourself with others, building this community, building this transition of trying to establish a club here at CBU, going beyond that and trying to do a community, of counseling, of counselors, of us being there for one another. And, we're human, we have emotions, we have more. Once we take off the mask or the hat, whatever you want to call it, we're human and we have things of our own that we have to deal with, so that's a lot of like where I see this going, and where we're taking this now in this next part, these next chapters in our books, and together we're like constructing and collaborating to like make this happen. I love it. Feels great, feels right, the right now.
Yeah, I
So
love that you said that, because I think just from talking to our classmates, especially at CBU, it seems like everybody knows they're there for a very profound purpose, and everyone's there because they know they should be there, and it's the exact place and time, like you said. So I think the fact that we're all here and we've all come together, like, that's a miracle in itself, and that should be celebrated. And so I think it's great that, you're trying to do these things. We're trying to get this club off the ground and stuff at CBU, and we want to create these organizations for people to have connection, like you said. And I think it's increasingly important, especially it seems like in the society that we're in and the way that the world's kind of headed. We need to have each other's backs, like we need to have each other's six.
yeah.
So I think that's definitely probably one of the most important parts is networking and forming this community for sure.
Yeah, somebody please quote me on this. This is the post-COVID era. This is what I like to refer to it. So somebody please quote me, because this is the post-COVID. This whole post-COVID, that this is it's a whole nother thing that we're dealing with, because it's not just what we had prior to everything that was there, but like now there's a lot of new things that are there. They're not just that are present, not because they're new, it's just because now they've been exposed. Now this whole COVID, this whole thing that this whole world has been in, during that period of time, and like what we're kind of still going through right now and everything, is just brought so much more to light, and so much more has been lost. So that's kind of like where I see it. I see like, what? I see like a new dawn for us to be able to look forward and look to like, what are we gonna do? What do we do now? What do we get from what was passed down to us from everybody that's done research, everybody that's established, from all the greats, right? When we talk about all the good, amazing people that wrote down all these psychology, all these things and everything, we get that. And when we take it, and how do we apply it now to the life we live in now, to this 21st century, to this post, and all this craziness and everything, like, what do we do now?
I mean, the only constant is change. That's the only thing that's constant in this life is change. So the fact that we're the new wave of psychologists, hopefully in the near future, and we want to be there, and we want to form these communities, like you said. And Yeah, I definitely agree. I know there was something else you wanted to touch on as well. Can you remind me about what that was? There was something
And
else.
my God, it's awesome. We've talked about so much already. Oh
I
man,
know.
I already lost the track. Yeah, you know what, honestly, on my part, that's all pretty much kind of like a recall, just kind of like what we talked about kind of like the club at CBU, the counseling club we're working right now to establish at CBU. And then kind of like beyond that, after we're done with school, kind of like in the outside in the real world, we're talking about kind of establishing and opening up an association, you know, for people to go from here, from school, here's your community, and then afterwards, here you go, here's your community. Welcome to the real world, and now we're here together, and that. So kind of that's a little bit of what we were talking about, and I don't know, it's about I remember everything else we've talked about.
Yeah. Yeah,
Unless you got
definitely.
something else to throw there,
I mean, hey, I'm hanging out, I'm having a good time.
that's
Um,
awesome, right?
yeah, I definitely just I think encouraging, students from various programs and various schools to reach out and form communities. Like, don't be afraid to make friends with people, because you might hear it in your classes from your instructors, but it's really true that we need to make these connections now and form these
Mhm.
communities now while we're in school, because these are our colleagues that we're going to rely on, when we're practicing. These are the people that you're going to call up and be like, hey, I got this client, I need to refer to you, like, can you take them, sort of thing. And it's really hard to, I think, function, especially in practice as a therapist, if you don't have people you can rely on as colleagues.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of this field, is being an academic and being, um, a colleague in this specific profession.
Mhm.
Um, and as far as CBU goes, I think I'm just going to plug CBU for a
Go
second.
for it. Go for it.
Um, there are schools, so why not? You know, CBU is a Baptist. It's a Baptist university. It is a Christian college. I am not a Christian, and you do not have to be a Christian to go there. But I think it's really important that people don't feel limited just because of their cultural expectations, or they don't feel limited because of their upbringing or things like that. Don't be afraid to branch out. You
Mhm.
know, I was really nervous when I first came to CBU because I didn't think I was going to be well received.
Mhm.
I'm military. I'm queer. I had a really, like I said, unusual like undergrad experience.
Mhm.
And then once I got to CBU, it was like I could finally breathe.
Mhm.
Like I could relax, and like I realized, wow, like people actually see other people here. They don't just see,
Yeah.
the labels, or they don't see like the GPA, or they don't see like, what you've done. It's like they just see you as a person. And I think that's the most important quality that we can all develop as trainees in therapy and as
Mhm.
therapists is, we need to just be able to look and see the person and not see their symptoms, not see their disorders, not see their mistakes. Like, we need to just meet them as a person, person
Yeah.
to person, human being to human being. And I'm really, really grateful that we all get to do this and have this opportunity for that. Yeah.
Yes, just as a person. And that's such a beautiful way, kind of like to leave with that thought of like thinking about like, yes, CBU for us and our experience in this university, that's something that's very well um passed along, and you could see it everywhere, you could feel it everywhere, like through the campus, and especially once you start getting into like the master's program and the higher, the doctoral. It's like the groups just become more, the professors, the staff, everybody just becomes a lot more supportive, and you could feel the love, you could feel the understanding, and amongst us as like students and cohort, we care for one another, and we love to see others succeed. We love to see others do well, and that's kind of where I see like part of this community thing is just about all just pushing each other, and let's moving this together, helping each other out, celebrating our accomplishments, celebrating the good things that we have. And in reality, even in our bad times, because that's life. Life gives you lemons, right? You get bad times, everything, to be there for one another during these times as well. So, man, it's been an amazing uh, podcast episode. Thank you so much, Brett, for this opportunity to kind of get to know you more, get to hear your story, get to put out the good stuff that you have, you know, for us right now that are going to listen to this that are in the program, and for those undergrad, the psychology students that are thinking about, you know, transferring over here. You know, this is definitely what we're aiming for. We're trying to give them substance, trying to give them information for them to know and to be prepared. Hey, this is what happens over here. This is what goes on. So thank you so much, Brett. Really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you so much again for having me. And it's really great that you're doing this. And um, I look forward to hopefully like meeting new people in the program and freshmen who want to come in and, have a good time. And yeah, I look forward to, the rest of our cohort and all of us being successful in our future endeavors.
That's awesome, and thank you for teaming up and joining the team and pushing all of this, because you know all this is for everybody. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining the team, and let's get to work.
Yeah,
That's all we do.
absolutely. Let's do
That's
it.
all we
Let's
do.
create it for everybody else.
Awesome, sounds good. Well, to everybody listening, thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in too. Sit, relax, and you know what? Let's talk. Thank you so much. You have a great one. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.